Connors. What do I do with the microphone?
The mic?
I know, it's around here someplace.
Steve.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have Joyce Connors here. She hasn't been to a Rotary Club meeting since last March when the COVID virus began ravaging the country. Joyce, you look great in that animal print mask you have there.
Thank you.
You're newly elected to the board. This is your first meeting. Let me ask you, were you a little worried about this and the safety aspect of it?
I think about it no matter where I go. So it's not just about here, and I know what they've done to try and make this as safe as possible. I wear a mask when I go out, so I've never gotten paranoid about this whole thing, but I do think about it every time I'm going to leave my house and just do the things that they say are necessary to do.
You bet.
So,
Well, we're really happy to see you.
thank you.
All right, welcome everybody. Steve Geis is going to lead us with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and we did not have a sign up for invocation today, but I think we should take just a quiet moment and wish those impacted by the storms well. Apparently there's quite a bit of damage, so we'll give them just a quiet moment. All right, I don't know if we have any guests in the room. Do we have any guests in the room? I didn't see any. So we'll skip right on past that. No need for you today, Mary Ann?
Okay. I guess I'll survive. I mean, neither.
Yes.
We didn't get to see your affirmators or something.
Oh, yeah. So I should send the sign up around. Would you send that around? So one of the dynamics of having the in-person meetings and then some folks who don't feel comfortable is we have less people in the room to pass these or share these duties. So one of our goals really is to try to figure out how we can make the meetings live broadcast as well, so we can have all of our other Rotarian friends be able to participate and do the invocation and other things, get their happy dollars and everything too. So the sheet is going around. It might require some double sign-ups of people.
Should we just sign up everybody else?
Sign up everybody.
That's not here.
If you're not here, you can sign.
That's right, there you go. Yes, be careful when you don't attend, right? All right, so club announcements, we'll move right into that. And we have Steve Geis with us today, and he's going to talk about Hempstead Interact.
So COVID-19 has definitely not stopped the Hempstead Interact Club. They are well on their way before school starts even. I think it's because the year got cut short last year. So their board maintained the same because they were all juniors. So all the board stayed the same. So they're up and running. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and they have a couple what they call COVID-19 friendly projects. And one of them is that they're going to do local postcards to the troops that are deployed locally. So they're all going to sign them with a nice message, and they're sending those out next week. But what they've asked for the club to do, or to think about doing, is they know that we have a lot of woodworkers or people that like to do projects. They're looking to build a library, a book library that sits out. All the other schools have them, but Hempstead does not. So it's one where you donate the books, and people can take books as they need it. And they also want to be able to put scarves and hats and stuff like that in there, but mainly the books. So they're looking to anybody that wants to maybe jump on this project and help build one. That's what they're looking for. So they said they would ask the club first before they start asking their dads and parents and everybody. I just figured it could be a joint project, but they are well under their way, and so I'm pretty happy with them that they've gotten 2 meetings in before school's even started. So postcards are going out, and all their other projects, so let us know. But that's what they're looking to the club for, is looking for anybody that's interested in help building the book library for the front of the school.
Yeah. Mark me down, Steve.
Okay.
I'll bust out my woodworking tools.
All right.
Any other updates on Interact, like Waller or anything?
Waller hasn't gotten back to me yet, which is completely fine.
Right. And still, seniors defunct right now. We need to get somebody there who can lead it, right?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, thanks for that update, appreciate it. HR roadside cleanup,
No
Any
update
dates?
yet, we'll have a date.
Yep,
Yeah.
so September
It'll be in
still.
September, early September.
Yep. Okay. I mentioned about the goal of having dual meetings. So if anybody knows somebody who's a audiovisual expert. Gary's doing a lot of great work with recording these videos, but we'd like to also try to do the live broadcast while we're doing the recording, and Gary can't do both of those, so if any of you know of somebody who's good with that, we'd like to try a Zoom broadcast live at the same time. So please reach out to me if you know somebody who would be good at that. Otherwise, I might bring a laptop and start Zoom and have somebody on the other side or a couple people try to test it and see how the audio is and just kind of learn from it. I don't want to announce it to the whole club and get a whole bunch of people on if it's a bust, so we might have to just experiment a little bit. So again, any help would be appreciated there. Joyce, raffle.
Yep, you bet.
Okay, you're small, but you're great in your generosity. We got collected $31, Kim. I counted it a couple of times, $31. Your prizes today are a bottle of red wine. It's a Sauvignon, a winemaker's blend.
So you got
A red winemaker's blend. Now then, if you like the hard stuff, we have a couple of, I had Charlie look at the label. It's a Canadian blend, but it reads Texas Select Club. So 2 drinks in here. And for those of you who are on the intellectual, always learning, we have a book. It's a Wall Street Journal bestseller, and the name of it is The Coaching Habit. Say less, ask more, and change the way you lead forever. So if there's anybody in here still working, this is the book for you. All right, I'm going to take these over to Steve and ask you to draw out 3 names, and I will come back to you. I'll lay this down and bring these prizes over. All right, you got 3? Now he has 3. All righty, Steve, read one off. Joyce White. Charlie, you want any booze?
Hard stuff.
All right, Charlie Green, he's going to drink the hard stuff. That's number 2 is Scott. You have wine, or you can, you're still working. All right, I'll bring it to you. And the last one?
He needs one.
Danielle, I'll bring yours to you. So you're still working. You're going to be a better leader next week.
Buy my own wine.
All right.
I was going to say, those still working still need wine, right?
Thank you. Give those to Mr. Green.
In fact, those still working might need more wine.
I wasn't gonna say it, but yes.
Congratulations.
All right, thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome.
So, Happy Dollars real quick before we bring up our speaker. And any other community announcements. Who's happy today? No one anything special today?
Oh,
Ed's happy, all right.
here we go.
I'm just happy to wear pants and get the hell out of the house a little bit.
Well,
Happy too.
we're just as happy.
Ed, we're really glad to know you still own pants.
Right. And I'm bringing back ascots, I feel like.
Yeah.
I am glad to be here.
Well, good.
Good to see you.
Good. Paul.
Paul.
Yeah, I completed my training to be a census taker this past week, which was really, believe me, it's a demonstration of government in action. That's one word. But soon I will be knocking on doors in the area. I'm a NORFU, it calls. No response, frequent user or something, I don't know. But it was quite an experience.
Cool.
So
I'll report on it another time.
how long does that go on?
I'll probably start by this weekend and through the middle of October, or until it's all done.
All right, well, if no other announcements, we'll bring up Scott.
All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Danielle Peterson. She has been president and CEO of United Way of the Dubuque area Tri-States for the last 4 years. She has spent a lifetime repeatedly telling people how to pronounce her name. It's Danielle, rhymes with captain and Tennille, or in later years, Shaquille, O'Neill. So she is a work hard, play hard kind of gal. Finds that she gives as much as her life balance that she can handle. She's worked in local nonprofits for over 25 years and has many stories, some hilarious, some inspirational, and some heart-wrenching, that make up her work history and keep her driven to do better for the community every day. She's a UW Platteville grad, tired mother of 2 grown girls and 1 messy husband. Loves cheese curds, vodka, and red wine, not in that order. Sorry I took your wine. comes from the home of the catfish capital and the city with the longest main street without an intersection, which is Potosi.
Where?
Potosi.
Potosi, okay.
I love it.
O'Neill.
Thank you. That clicker up here.
Oh, yeah, no, it's right up on the
Oh,
deck,
perfect.
right here.
Thank you.
And it's the left button.
Thank you, okay, perfect. I know you guys, they were leaving who was presenting today at Rotary a surprise, because I'm sure if they told everyone that it was gonna be me today, crowds would have been way too huge for Rotary. No, but I do really appreciate the chance to be able to share a little bit with each of you today. What I thought I'd talk about is not just United Way, but basically United Way and the community's response during COVID-19. Just to bring you guys a little bit up to speed on what's been happening in the nonprofit sector. I know some of you may have had some involvement, but if not, I hope to enlighten and inform you a little bit. And I want to make sure, Scott, you can keep me on track of time here. So here are some things that have happened since March for us. Certainly, as you can imagine, the increased needs for food have really skyrocketed through our community right as COVID hit mid-March. And those increased needs for food really required us to come together as a community and talk about who was being provided the food, where was it available to people, even the fact of when education was impacted. A lot of our students in the community rely on their school system for breakfast and lunch. So we were faced with what can we do as a community to help support those children who need access to food. Some of the things that came from that were also the Almost Home, which is a homeless men's shelter. That organization typically relies very, very heavily on the support of volunteers. So oftentimes her volunteers for Almost Home are people who are retired and people who are going through the education system. So typically students at Loras, UD, NACC, and Clark. And when the call out for those who were elderly to stay at home more, to isolate happened, and the students then themselves were no longer attending school on campus, what happened to the volunteer pool for some of our nonprofits it really shrunk up. So they also needed to get additional volunteers and actually had to hire a different position in order to be able to open a month early for some of our homeless needs here locally. We also have meals being served at the Dubuque Rescue Mission. And because of COVID-19, they're no longer able to serve foods in-house. So they're making meals to go for those who are accessing food resources there. So you may notice that you may see more homeless people out and about eating, and I know we certainly have in Town Clock Plaza, that kind of thing, where people are trying to take care of their food needs. And then we're also talking about some additional planning for winter. What happens during the winter time, where are people going to go to congregate, eat those meals? As you know, of course, too, unemployment took a huge rise. We have some businesses that closed or departments that closed, and then also other organizations furloughed employees during that time. Our United Way and many of our community partners worked very closely with Iowa Workforce Development and the the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation to make sure people had additional resources and supports so that they were able to be best informed about services and things that were available within their communities. We also helped to share, I know the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation has a Safer at Home resource that they created and lots of additional resources on their website. So we helped to assure that people had access to that, as well as the workforce location for their unemployment filings and support that took away from our local support and actually went to an 800 number or 888 number. Of course, too, you can imagine there was education impacts for youth, but also for parents as they were responding to the changes within the education system. So certainly trying to balance that educational and social emotional needs of their children. Then also many parents shifting to working from home or being furloughed and trying to adjust with their own kind of shrinking budget. So there were impacts there. I mentioned that as well about the children having their food access sometimes at school. We also had some childcare needs that we addressed and talked about as a group. DHS regulations continue to change, and we continue to monitor those about how many children are able to be in a room together. What are some regulations about the ratio? Who is available to have children at their site? Is it school age? Is it infants? Are we coordinated? Is there a gap in where a child care center may need to be addressed? Some parents are wondering about childcare. Will they hold my slot, or am I going to lose my slot? Can I afford to pay for childcare anymore now if I've been furloughed, or am I going to lose my daycare slot forever? So those are some childcare needs that we had come up. Brain health needs, certainly the 1 in 5 of us. I know we had Debbie Butler come and talk about brain health now, but 1 in 5 of us has struggles with brain health issues at the best of times. So as you can imagine, with the anxiety and isolation kind of rising a little bit, there have been a lot of additional brain health needs that we have advocated for here locally and just kind of called our attention to make sure that people were aware, to maybe reach out and check on our neighbors, check on our friends and family members, and then making sure we have resources available. And then for some, unfortunately, isolating at home isn't a safe place. Many of our children, that is a place that they can't rely on for safety. So child abuse concerns, also some parents. Maybe that they're people who are in domestic violence relationships, that's not a safe place for them to be isolated, where they don't see other friends and family, they don't see other coworkers who may notice some signs and symptoms of that abuse happening. So again, that impacts our brain health overall as well. We also had to be a health support for our community members who needed accurate information about how to support themselves or their family during this time. We talked a lot about Test Iowa sites and what the needs were there. And for some families, it's their culture to live with many generations of family members within their home. So we did lots of planning as a community around where people may quarantine. How might they keep others in their homes safe? What are some specific needs populations have? We also had financial assistance for nonprofits to support their increased needs. So certainly nonprofits are pretty flexible anyway, but they certainly had to adapt to our needs locally. And at the same time as our needs are increasing as a nonprofit community, we're seeing our fundraising stop. So that impacted many of our nonprofits here as well, and continues to. Also coordination and support of the nonprofit work to respond accordingly. We have over 550 nonprofits here locally, and if you can imagine, some of those work for food, some of those work on childcare, some of them are on medical supports, but there are a number of organizations who work on a variety of issues here locally, and that was an immediate need that we came together as a community and said, who can do what, where, and how can we make the best use of our resources? Some of that coordination and support that happened, I'll throw out a couple examples. We have a homeless hotline number here in our Dubuque area, and what that's actually operated by East Central Intergovernmental Association, ECIA, who is now known as Community Solutions of Eastern Iowa. Way too many acronyms for you, but I want you to know there's a homeless hotline. So that homeless hotline takes and prioritizes our homeless population, and then each week they talk about who's moving up in the priority list, what shelters have availability, where there's some resources and supports. So that homeless hotline for us managed things a little bit differently during COVID-19, and they actually started taking phone calls for food deliveries from Dubuque Area Labor Harvest. So instead of just doing the meals at Dubuque Area Labor Harvest, as they are known for, They also did groceries that they delivered for the first time in quite a while. So that was a coordinated effort and a new partnership. We also saw Do Ride and Salvation Army come together in a new kind of partnership way. So Do Ride already had a system with volunteers who were driving around. Salvation Army also needed people to deliver food. So that was a nice match for them. And we also had people who were furloughed in the nonprofit sector who possess special skill sets. And we used them as volunteers and as outreach to people who may need some supports and some help. We did some mapping of the food and meal distribution just to make sure that there were spots that we were not missing. That kind of happened as a collective community. And additional work started and will continue on housing and utility concerns. Housing, there was a moratorium for holding off evictions, staving off evictions, and shut-offs for utilities until the middle of July. So that happening, now we're concerned and monitoring some of the potential increase of evictions and shut-offs there. So we need additional resources, and we've tried to access additional resources to support families in that. So basically what, sorry, remember I said I can't go backwards? I just did that, sorry. Got a little clicky. What do we do about it? Those are all the needs, and that sounds pretty sad and depressing maybe for some of you who don't know some of those things that are happening. Here's what we've done, and we've worked with the community. This is not a sole United Way thing by any means, but we've worked with the community to pull people together to make basically a team of supports for people. No one organization can do everything for everyone, but it's really important, more now than ever, that we work together. So we have an organization, an entity I should say, called COAD. It stands for Community Organizations Active in Disaster, that we've been a part of co-chairing with the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque since 3.5 years ago, I think we reinstated that. So that organization has 9 subcommittees that work together, planning for the event of a disaster. It covers everything from volunteers, communication plans, organization of supplies, integrating additional networking and supports from outside areas. There's long-range planning committee. And that long-range planning committee, as an example, decided to call forth and initiate our disaster relief fund. So the disaster relief fund that only is operational basically when we have a need for it. So the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque holds that funding, and then twice a week our long-range planning committee meets and looks at the applications that have come in from area nonprofits to meet our specific recovery needs for the disaster. So to date, we really have helped to raise $1.3 million for disaster relief and have allocated out over, I think it's a little bit over $740,000. And again, those funds are being allocated to organizations to address the needs of COVID-19, so that rapid response. Most of those initially I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but were food-related costs. We continue to work on parameters of those two to see if people have longer-term planning that they need for recovery versus just a relief. I mentioned the housing utility concerns and that moratorium. We also we'll see the impact now that the additional unemployment dollars have not been allocated anymore to people who were being furloughed. So that's something we're working together with a number of providers in the county, the city, nonprofit providers, homeless providers, and we're working together there to address and monitor that. And then we're also thinking ahead about parameters that have been built into systems already that may need to be challenged or changed a bit. So if somebody can only access food once every 2 months, that could be a roadblock for them getting additional assistance. So again, looking at some parameters there. And let's see, I mentioned the disaster relief. We also have a 211 information referral line. We as in United Way has operated that for Dubuque, Delaware, and Jackson counties for, I believe, the 4 years, I know, so the 4 years that I've been there, and prior to that it was operated through Project Concern. That 211 hotline as a state became a COVID-19 support number. So when people had questions about COVID exposure or symptoms or where to go for testing, or looking for local resources, that 211 number was where we directed people. We received, since March 14th, we've received 1,700 calls from just Dubuque, Delaware, and Jackson counties through our 211 system. And just to put a parameter to that, prior to that, we had received 300 calls for the remainder of the year, so it skyrocketed. 65% of those were healthcare related, and then of course 12% more housing and shelter questions. And we also helped to create we have a free app now for 211 information referral that's available for people on their phones. They can also text. There's also specialized staff that can be directly tapped into when people call 211 if there's suicidal concerns. There's brain health specialists, there's medical specialists, and then there were some unemployment specialists at the time too, as well as general call center people. Right when COVID hit, we started, United Way implemented a nonprofit human service provider call that we do once a week. We just shifted it to twice, to every other week, but prior to that, we have done it once a week, every week since March. And this is a place where people can call in, talk about barriers, receive updates, talk about program changes, so that we can work together as a collective unit responding to our community's needs in a cooperative and collaborative way. We have representatives on there from workforce development and county, city employees. We've had legislators join us. We've had people from economic development, housing staff, of course, too. And that's really a great source of information for us. Not only does it allow us to update our 211 information right away, but it allows our network to kind of problem solve and talk about things together. Of that, two other groups kind of spurred out from there. One is regarding childcare, and we pushed out a childcare assessment in Marshallese, Spanish, and English, just to try to find out some information so we can best respond to the community. And then another food scarcity group that's specific to food needs here in Dubuque County has come from that. We also, United Way helped to purchase with some grants we received, and including from the Rotary, thank you, but we purchased some bulk protein, specialty foods, cleaning supplies, food containers. We gave to places that were delivering food, such as Salvation Army, Resources Unite, Dubuque Area Labor Harvest, Food Pantry, the Dubuque Rescue Mission, and the Boys and Girls Club. And we continue to talk about the telehealth, or the needs for brain health, including advocating at the local and state levels for telehealth support. Telehealth allows people who need access to brain health services to do so right from their home, or from an area where they can have internet, which we know cannot happen today, unfortunately, in most places in our area. But having access to brain health supports from your home, we've heard from providers like Hillcrest and Riverview, and who else? Catholic Charities, of course, too. But their no-show rates have really declined because they're now having this, probably the needs are up, as I mentioned, and people have, they don't have the barriers anymore about it's embarrassing to go to a place, or I don't have a ride to get there, or I'm trying to squeeze, getting my kids to school and back, and now people are really accessing those supports. DRA postponed their funding allocation that was due to come out in May. That impacted, of course, our nonprofit community. Many rely on that for operational needs or project needs. I know many people put those projects on hold. And like many businesses, we had furloughs within the nonprofit sector too. Some positions were lost. Many of the nonprofit businesses applied for PPP loans to help with operations and things. As a collaborative, we also, two positive things that came from it, we also were able to access some additional, the Telegraph Herald offered some funding reductions for advertisements there, so nonprofits were able to capitalize on that and use that to make our dollars go longer, so that really helped. And then I also just want to say one huge positive that I have seen and been very proud of in our network is that our nonprofit sector has really pulled together, I think, and has had a chance collectively to work so much more closely with our city and county and maybe legislative staff too than I've ever seen since I've started here at United Way. So I'm very happy for that. And I also see that our nonprofit network has really used one another as a sounding board and as a support for each other. As a nonprofit leader, it can be very difficult to lead your organization and feel the stress of your employees and the stress of your organization and the stress of the people that you serve, and then kind of take that all in and not show it back. So I think that unit has been very supportive of one another. The only other thing I just wanted to share here, I'm probably over on time and I can offer it up for questions if people have, but the now what? I hate to end it with like, this is like Danielle's the most morbid person ever to talk about all these horrible, hard things. But when you know better, you do better. I've loved quotes, and I always think that one too. So I look at every opportunity I have to have a conversation with someone or to present like this as a way to shed hopefully some information, something that you've learned today that you can share with somebody else. Whether it's about a resource that you heard of or a service or support, or you are inclined to check something out more. That's doing better, and everyone has the capacity to do that. We always talk about at United Way, to live united, you must give, advocate, and volunteer. There's so many opportunities for each of those efforts to happen here locally if you're able to do that. I always talk about giving can be monetary. That's what kind of takes us to run, right? But you can give other things too. You can give a compliment, a shout out, public support of a nonprofit organization or resource that maybe you're involved in. Advocating, talking about issues about food scarcity and homelessness and brain health and childcare needs. Anytime you have the opportunity to talk about and have conversations locally helps spur that interest and support here. And then of course volunteerism, whether it's a one-off volunteerism or cleaning the roads, or volunteering at an organization such as a nonprofit on a committee or a board, it takes it takes many hours of volunteerism to make each of us run. And I want to thank everyone who has any part in nonprofits here locally, because we all appreciate those people helping us carry our mission forward. But that's kind of what I have today. So, yeah.
We are adjourned. Have a great week, everyone. Hey, Doug.